All right, peeps. On today's episode of the Kung Fu Genius, the genius and I will be discussing Berry Gordy's The Last Dragon. Lots of gems, lots of the barge, lots of to reach that upper level. Your mind, body, and soul must become one. Let's get to it.
And every day, I practice martial arts.
Watch out!
Yo, Dre, how you doing, man?
Sifu, I'm good. How are you?
Looking fantastic today, man. You got a Mexican cholo vibe going on. What's going
Do you
on?
know?
It's Cholo
where the
Young.
Cholo
Yeah,
is?
Cholo Young. Right?
The Cholo Young.
He's in Bloodsport 3, South Central, all right?
I forgot to put this on airplane mode.
That's fine. So here we are. We're going to do a special episode today.
Word.
It's not based on a Patreon recommendation. It's nothing controversial.
What is it based on?
It's based on something
Out
that
of thin air? Out of the ether?
I think a lot of people in our demographic, namely old farts who are into like martial arts, would be into.
Okay.
And that would be to discuss
That's the
what I
majority of our
consider-
audience.
Well, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. What can discuss what I consider to be one of the classics of American martial arts cinema.
Ooh.
Okay.
What do we have?
And I'm not talking about Lone Wolf McQuade. I'm talking about
What?
The Last
That's where
Dragon.
Oh.
That's what's up.
Oh. You are the last
Drag
Cholo.
run. Yes. So The Last Dragon is actually really, at least as far as I'm concerned, it was a very important movie in my childhood. As much as I watched Bruce Lee films and Shaw Brothers films and all that when I was a kid, there weren't really a whole lot of great American martial art movies outside of like the canon ninja movies.
As far as America goes.
Yeah, you know, like obviously the level of martial arts choreography in Hong Kong films were so much better than American films, but there are a few exceptions.
Mm-hmm.
Few American martial arts classics, and I think The Last Dragon has to be up there as one of the top American martial arts classics.
And I think that's why Mikey Deane has not seen it yet.
It could be. So
It's because I'm a failure.
yeah, it could be that too. So
It could be.
we just found out before we decided to record today that our amazing producer, sound engineer, and I suppose the Brit that you always have to have one guy with the British accent on every show nowadays, it seems. So he's like that. He's like the token
Designated
Brit, guy, right?
Brit.
He has not
He's seen snippets, he says.
seen the last. What does that mean?
Yeah,
Snippets.
we don't know what that means.
It's like little clips, you know, because like I have like ADHD.
No, we know what snippets mean, okay? It's just the fact that you've seen snippets of The Last Dragon doesn't mean that because you should have seen the actual film by now.
Well, I'm actually kind of disappointed that this fantastic idea of an episode came today because I was actually going to watch it this weekend.
Yeah, cool story, bro.
Yeah,
It's on
right.
Netflix
Yeah,
for
right.
everyone.
Cool story,
You know,
bro.
What's wild
Whatever.
is we've shown it to someone that hasn't seen it, and we had a
Yeah,
blast.
it's one of those movies where
Yeah.
if you're my friend or you're in my circle and I find out that you haven't seen
Right.
it, I will watch it right then and there.
You-
There are two movies that are like that for me. The Last Dragon and Bloodsport. If I find someone who hasn't watched Bloodsport, I'm like, all right, you'll get it with my live commentary. Or you'll
Okay.
get if you only watch Bloodsport once, you should watch it with me.
Maybe that's why he hasn't watched it till this day.
Yeah, you really should watch it with me. All right. You should
Well,
watch
what are we
it
doing afterwards?
With
we,
us.
we could
No,
watch
with
The
us.
Last Dragon, yes. Yeah. So you'll get the actual commentary.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I think, and I say this without any exaggeration, because sometimes we exaggerate a little on the KFG podcast. I mean, the KFG, after all, is a character I play on YouTube. It's a slightly amped up version of what
Right.
I'm really like, but it's not exactly what I'm like.
Just like I play a character on YouTube.
Yeah.
This is not me. This
You know
is not the
what's
real
funny?
me.
Like when people meet me, they're like, "Oh, you're like really chill. You're not like you're on the podcast." And they meet Dre, they're like, "No, he's exactly like he is on the podcast." Yeah,
That's not true.
Oh, it's
no,
so
Dre,
true.
You are
So true.
of
I'm
all of
not-
us.
Yeah.
All right, you are the closest to how you actually are in real life on the podcast compared to me or compared to Mikey, right? I take my normal, I take the rantier side of my persona and
Okay.
amp it up
You
to
amp it
11
up.
just for the episodes.
I try to dumb mine down, and it's still no.
No, you're pretty. It's pretty. This is pretty much you.
Did you say you tried to dumb
I
yours
tried to
down?
dumb my character down.
That's just too easy. I'm
so
leaving that one right there.
Yeah,
In fact, the entire reason why I wanted Dre to be my co-host on the podcast was like, during the virus of unknown origins, he was living with me for a little bit.
Yeah.
And we were just
wild.
watching movies.
Right before.
Yeah.
No, it was right before.
And we were laughing. I'm like, Dre, like, we should just do like a podcast with just you and me, like, talking about stuff or whatever,
Just
right?
it.
And that was the and you
That was
you do the same exact thing. If there were no cameras here and we were having this conversation, you'd pretty much say exactly the same things. That's the difference. Whereas Mikey and I would be different having this conversation without cameras rolling. But anyway, we should probably start talking about The Last Dragon. Now, I have to say, without exaggeration, all right? So this is me not being the KFG. This is me being Alex Richter, always the victor, all right?
All right.
I think a big part of the reason why I teach martial arts in New York City is because this movie was such an indelible part of my childhood.
Wow.
So this movie came out in 85.
You mean in New York City?
Specifically in New York City. The fact that I teach martial arts in New York City, all right?
As opposed to like Connecticut or something.
Why would I teach martial arts in Connecticut? Who the hell would do that?
Who the hell would?
It would be the most soul-sucking thing you could possibly imagine. All right? Teaching martial arts in Connecticut? All right?
Yeah, Connecticut's a black hole pit of despair.
That's right.
Literally, your soul goes.
All right? Yes, it's the armpit of the East Coast.
Oh,
all right?
God. Is it?
Hey, Kung Fu Genius fans. If you like what we do here, please consider supporting us on Patreon. For as little as $5 a month, you'll get early access to episodes and other goodies not posted on the Kung Fu Genius channel. With higher levels of support, you can get your name in the description, a live chat with me, or at the baller level, you even get your own personal KFG episode with me as my guest. The link to our Patreon page is in the description of this episode below. Patreons have a direct link to chat with me and get first dibs on any questions for Ask Me Anything episodes. Click on the link in the description for our Patreon page for more information, and I'll see you on Patreon.
So anyway, when I had not seen The Last Dragon, it came out in 85 in the theaters. So like for reference, it would be around the time that I started to get into martial arts, but I wasn't going to the movie theater to watch martial art movies yet. I was still kind of young, right? And my cousin Patty, who was a few years older than me on the Cuban side.
Patty, guy or girl?
Girl.
Girl.
She
okay.
was like, she knew that I was like a big Bruce Lee head as a kid. And she's like, have you seen The Last Dragon? And I'm like,
Have I met Patty?
no, you haven't.
Okay.
She's like, have you seen The Last Dragon? I'm like, The Last Dragon? I mean, because that name sounds like something that belongs in the canon. Like, if you didn't know specifically about Bruce Lee movies, you would think like The Last Dragon was like Bruce Lee's final movie or something like that, right? And I was like, The Last Dragon, what's that? She's like, oh, you'll totally love it. And at first I was a little skeptical because like why my cousin would know anything about a martial art movie, like whatever. Like I know Enter the Dragon. I knew like 5 martial art movies then, and I thought I knew all the martial art movies, right? And I was like, what does my cousin know about martial art movies? And then we rented it at the video store, if you remember what those are, kiddos.
Okay.
And
Blockbuster.
I remember watching it and just going like, oh my God, this movie's so amazing. And I immediately fell in love with Bruce Leroy.
Okay.
And I fell in love with his school, with his students, with the whole like mythos of the movie and the glow and the master and the Bruce Lee stuff and
How
everything.
old were you? Do you remember?
I don't remember how old I was when I saw it. I mean, obviously the film came out in 85, so I'm already like, what,
I was
8 years
10.
old or whatever. It was around the time that I started learning martial arts, but I didn't see it right away. Let's just say I probably saw it when I was maybe around 10. Okay.
I wonder if I saw it in the theaters or.
Yeah, I saw it.
Similar to what you saw.
I remember because we rented it and we watched it at home on VHS with my cousin Patty.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it was the whole thing like for that time. It had like all the music, like the bars. I mean, it's produced. It's Barry Gordy's The Last Dragon, so it's got all that kind of music in there.
What's amazing, I remember seeing the DeBarge video first, and not knowing it was from the movie, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that really that it was so much from the movie as that was like the first music video, and Barry Gordy decided to use the movie to promote it because if you think about it, the Rhythm of the Night is the only is one of the few songs in the movie that's not really like about the movie because all the other songs are like when you reach that final level, your mind, body, and soul. Like it's all about the glow.
And you know what's bugged out?
What?
that song,
Yeah.
Rhythm of the Night, is the only song in that soundtrack that is not corny.
Yeah, no
to
kidding.
me,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
everything else is corn.
Yeah, even the one
Yeah.
Stevie Wonder song in there, where
Yo.
Stevie Wonder songs are always bangers, all right? But there's a Stevie Wonder song in The Last Dragon when he's coming in at the
Throne.
end. By the way, before we get into this, spoilers, all right? There's going to be tons of spoilers, all right? When he comes to finally rescue Laura Charles at the end at Seventh Heaven, and he's creeping in the ninja suit and everything like that, there's a Stevie Wonder song playing, and it's like a weird Stevie Wonder song that was like not a hit. And I just remember the lyric, I got an upset stomach from a broken heart. And do you know that song?
Yeah, well, you got to remember
Like,
that
I know
Stevie
it.
Wonder started losing it around the mid-'80s, and he
Yeah.
was kind of bad for a
Whoa.
solid 20 years.
Right.
Until he kind of had a bit of a renaissance in like the early 2000s.
Right,
He's
right.
almost like got his funk
That's
back,
interesting you say that, because that girl came out like around maybe a little before that.
What girl are you
That-
talking
that-
about? The
that
song
girl
That
is
Girl.
that yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that's a banger.
Yeah.
And then I think you might be right.
Right.
He that was on his like downturn. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I think that girl was like his hottest banger, and then these three words probably came around the same time.
Right,
but
right,
yeah,
right.
that was on that.
Yes, I mean, but the crazy thing about The Last Dragon is like, so if you separate, because it is a bit of a hard movie to describe.
Mhm.
Like, tell someone in like a sentence
No.
what The Last Dragon is, right? It's
not happening.
a martial arts movie, but not really a martial arts movie. It's a love story. It's an 80s movie. It's got a bit. It's not a musical, but it's like very music themed.
Yeah.
It's a comedy. It's kind of a bit surreal and ridiculous
It is
at times, right?
bonkers.
And so it is like, which I think also makes it a very quintessential 80s movie because it has so many different elements of like things
Bizarre.
from the 80s. There's a quest you have to go on. There's like weird, funky music. There's funky hairstyles. It's so dated, but it's like a kind of a bit of a guilty pleasure to watch,
Yeah.
I think.
It's a bazaar of a movie. It's like a bazaar.
Yes.
Going in bazaar, you have
Yes.
everything.
Yes. It's not a bizarre movie. It's like
It's
a bazaar.
It's like a
Yeah,
bazaar
it's like a
of
food
a movie.
bazaar.
Yeah.
Right? Yes.
You-
No, it's
everything you want in a movie
yes,
is there.
yes. So, and I think that's probably why it appealed to like my cousin, who
Mm.
was not not into martial arts. She was into like like the music. Like she probably watched it because of the music, like the bars and stuff. But it also happens to have martial arts stuff, and she's like, "Oh, you would like it because
Yeah.
it is kind of a movie that has at least for the time of the '80s, has a little something for everyone, right?"
Uh-huh.
And it's really like a movie that I generally watch at least once a year.
Mhm.
Sometimes more when I need to introduce it to other people. I've seen it, I think, now 3 times just this year because I had to introduce it to people who had not seen it
Yeah.
yet, right?
Was it Christian one of them?
Yeah, Christian. So,
Okay.
like, I know, so it's not our first European who had not seen that movie. And I showed it to him last week. So he's
Yeah.
from Austria. And
Uh-huh.
I'm like, oh, you got to watch this.
What did he think?
And he was like, this is so ridiculous. He's like, this is so ridiculous. And then but by about 10 minutes into it, he was hooked.
Yeah.
Like at first, he just thought it was like, no, come on, like this, what, like, and then he was like, okay. Then he,
Yeah,
then
I
he starts
see
to get,
why.
and then
I
by
see.
the end, he said, I'm going to show this movie to my students. We are going to have a movie night,
Yes.
and I will show it, right?
Yes.
So
good.
yeah, it I think it kind of wins people over a little bit. It's got some seriously dated bits in it, but it's like you can still deal with it because altogether it's just so solid. But before we continue, I just want to say that the best way to support the Kung Fu Genius is on Patreon. Patreon.com/the Kung Fu Genius for all your Kung Fu Genius needs. For as little as $5 a month, you get access to episodes early. Higher tiers of support get all sorts of goodies. And if you don't want to support us on Patreon, you can support us here on YouTube with memberships. We have special videos that are only for YouTube and Patreon members, like Ask Me Anything episodes, and especially Wing Chun based stuff. So if you have specific questions about training, things like that, Patreon and or YouTube memberships, that's where I answer all that stuff. It's the easiest way to support us. Or you can just send the Best Nation a donation on PayPal. All that information is in the description below. So yeah, so let's talk a little bit. Let's set the stage a little bit. So The Last
Okay.
Dragon, it's Berry Gordy's The Last Dragon.
That's right. It is Barry Gordy's.
Barry Gordy's The Last Dragon. From some videos we were just watching. So this seems to kind of been the end of Motown.
Now, of course, who doesn't know who Barry Gordy is? We got to explain who Barry Gordy is. He's the founder of Motown.
Yeah, that's right. And so he founded it for like a couple $100 back in the day, and then sold it apparently shortly after this movie was made for quite a bit more money, 300 million, something like that.
Well, there was Stevie Wonder had a clause in his record contract when he renegotiated it in the mid-70s that Barry Gordy couldn't sell Motown without his permission. And that he would also like get a cut of whatever it was.
There you go.
Ooh.
You know what I mean?
Good for him. Good for him.
Smart, Steve.
Yes. So anyway, we have Barry Gordy's The Last Dragon. Came out in 1985. Directed by Michael Schultz. I don't know if he's ever directed anything since.
Never heard of Michael Schultz.
Stars Timac, and it was this Timac's first and probably last real movie that he ever did, unfortunately. Like, he was the star. He was so good in it.
Yeah.
Think about it. He had never really acted before, and he was so perfect in the role. Some people talk about that he sounded like a little robotic, but
At some points,
I always thought, but that's like the character of Bruce Leroy.
Yeah.
He kind of talks like a fortune cookie, you know? He's been so into martial arts. He has this almost like very Americanized version of as Confucius says every time he talks, right? So I never looked at like the way he delivered his lines as being wooden. I just thought like, no, that's like he's someone
or bad acting.
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
It was good. It was actually
because he actually
character,
acted really well, like his reactions and stuff. Like, and he was very kind of childlike in many ways. I thought it was really good. Vanity, of course, whom I fell in love with, like especially as I got a little older and would keep rewatching this movie, and I'd be like, oh. Vanity, yes. Sorry, she was gorgeous.
Good old Vanity.
Has the worst song though in the whole movie, though. Unfortunately,
R.I.P. Vanity. By the
yes,
way.
yes,
man.
really,
What
really
a loss! What a loss!
But
so she's not going to be in any movies anytime soon, then?
No, she's not. No, she's not.
So, but I have to say, like,
As
everyone
he's, like,
in the movie
crying back here
is like everyone in the movie like is so great, and they're so committed to their roles, and so many of the roles are kind of batshit crazy, but everyone commits to it, and I think that's what makes the movie so great. Let's talk about the villain for a moment, Julius Carry. I think you cannot
he's one
imagine
of
this
your
movie
favorites.
without him,
Yeah.
right? Also hard to believe he was not a martial arts guy before this film. So according to my good friend Ron Van Cleef, Ron trained him for the film. And when you look at his performance, like his martial art performance, it's really on point. And to consider that he didn't know, he wasn't a martial arts guy and plays
he kicked
the villain.
the shit out of that jukebox too.
That's right.
He broke all the
scene is so great.
Destroyed it.
And then you have like Christopher Murney. He's the guy who plays Eddie Arcadian.
Oh,
and then Faith Prince, who's his girlfriend.
Well, you
Angela
know, oddly
Baracco.
enough, what's his name?
Christopher Murney.
Christopher Murney.
Mm-hmm.
He must have been like 40 years old when he did that role.
I don't know, but he had male
He
pattern
looked-
baldness, which
he
makes
looked-
everyone look
yeah.
like you could be a good looking 21-year-old,
Yeah.
but if you
Back
have that
then,
male
it was
pattern
different.
baldness, you look like you're
Yeah.
50, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was different.
Yeah. By the way, they just had another like anniversary of The Last Dragon at the Urban Action Showcase, which is an event that they have every year here in New York City. Where it's kind of like a little bit of a convention where they have vendors and stuff like that. And every year they usually have like different celebrities coming. They had another like some anniversary of The Last
Didn't
Dragon.
they have the 35th anniversary this year? I
Something
think?
like that.
Yeah.
And then they had like I don't think it would be. The movie's from '85, so it's more than the 35th anniversary. I think
it's
now.
coming up.
Yeah. So
or whatever.
it's
40th or whatever.
Yeah. So I'm kind of
My math is not mathing.
yeah, I'm not mathing at all, right? So yeah. So anyway, they have like a lot of the cast there, and so there's a scene, kind of set it up a little bit here, right? So Timac plays Leroy Green, who's known by many people as Bruce Leroy, but his name is not actually Bruce Leroy. He's Leroy Green, right?
Yeah.
And the
that's
opening
right.
scene is a great training scene where he's at his, you would call him his sensei because he's Japanese, but clearly he's doing some kind of Chinese martial arts, right?
Kung Fu,
Which
yeah.
is why I always thought it was strange that that he has got like what seems to be a Japanese sensei who's teaching him what would seem to be Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do because the ranking system is similar with like the phases and stuff, right?
Yeah, they botched that one.
There's Timac on the wooden dummy and hitting the speed bag and doing rolls, and chopping the red arrows and catches the blue one or whatever, right? And in my mind, I always think, like, when I think of his sensei, I think of Taki Kimura, who was a Japanese student of Bruce Lee. So in my mind, in this like alternate reality,
that's how you related it,
Last
yeah.
Dragon, I always think like, okay, his Japanese Sifu is like it's Taki Kimura, who happened to be in New York in this alternate alternate universe, right? And also knew archery and things like that, right? So, and then he basically says that, because he had caught that arrow without thinking.
Oh, yeah.
All right. That he had like kind of he's approaching the final level. And now Leroy doesn't think he's ready. He's like, no. He's like, I'm not
never
ready.
do.
And then his master's like, I'm no longer your master. And it's like, if you need to have a master, there's one here in New York, and he's an old sage called Some Dumb Goy. All right. All right. This is written by a Jewish guy, right? Some dumb goy.
Goy is classic.
Yes. And then
Classic.
he gives him what looks like a medallion or something that was Bruce Lee's.
Yeah.
And says, when you find the master, give this to him, right?
Symbolism.
So basically, right from the beginning of the movie, that's the quest. Bruce Leroy is a total badass. We've established that. He's approaching that final level, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And now he needs to go and find the master because his master doesn't want to teach him anymore, right? So now we have a quest already. First 5 minutes established is what the movie's about, right?
Right.
And then there's Bruce Leroy going out in his rice patty hat and his Chinese tongjong in hot-ass New York summer, right? Now, when I'm watching this as a kid, you have to imagine I was a huge Bruce Lee fan. And here's a movie in New York. I grew up in New Jersey, very close to New York City. And I'm like, whoa. And I'm looking at that school, and I'm thinking, like, I want to learn Bruce Lee's martial art from, like, a guy on a boat in New York City, right?
Okay.
And just, like, walk around and thinking, like, wow, in New York City, you could walk around wearing, like, a Chinese tongjong outfit and Chinese slippers and a
it's
rice
normal.
patty in the 80s, and no one would say anything, right?
It's totally normal.
Yeah, and the truth is, and that's one of the things that I love about New York City, is that you could do that today and no one would give a shit.
People will be like, okay.
Yes, yeah, no one.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as you're not hustling them for
Yeah.
money, no one cares, right? Do whatever you want, be
They
whatever
just
you
look
want.
at you and like, okay,
Yeah,
there you go.
and so there he goes
Do
on
you.
his quest. At some point in the film, he's in Chinatown, and he comes across these 3 jive talking Chinese dudes. And the juxtaposition is like he's a black guy who acts Chinese, and these are the Chinese guys who act like black dudes, right? Like in the 80s, that was the juxtaposition of these 2 characters. Right?
Breakdancing, I mean, even though it's been out for, some time, but it was like mainstream at this point.
Yes.
Hip hop, mainstream.
Yeah.
So they were definitely playing that art.
Yeah.
I like that.
So they had
It's
these 3 like Chinese dudes who are kind of like dancing to what's probably another Motown song because it's Berry Gordy's. Like he's sliding all these songs into the movie, right?
So good.
And they're there and they're performing it. And the crazy thing about that is I remember seeing that scene just laughing so hard because they give Bruce Leroy such a hard time and they make fun of him and they basically throw Chinese slurs at him. And they're Chinese, and they're kind of like making fun of him for, being like, too Asian or whatever, right? And so the crazy thing about that is in the early years of my school, I used to sublease my space to a stage combat company who would teach actors, especially theater actors, how to fight on stage. Like, for example, how do you sell a punch on stage that looks like it landed with the actor staying safe? There's a whole art to performing violence for theater that looks real to the audience, but it's very safe, whether using swords or fists or whatever, right? And a couple of my early students were also stage combat people. So that's how I got to meet all these stage combat people.
Mike
right?
Yan?
Yeah,
Down
Mike
with that
Yan
crew.
and all these other
Okay.
guys, right? And so they used to do workshops at my school, like on weekends when I didn't have something going on with my Wing Chun classes. And I would see all these like stage combat guys there. And there was this one Chinese guy who was a stage combat instructor who would always show up. And every time I saw him, he was super nice to me. And I would talk to him and I would see him week after week after week when they would come by. And I remember
Don't
one
tell
time
me.
I was talking to
Don't
Mike Yan
say
and
it.
I go like, hey, Mike, like,
What do I
the guy
recognize
Michael
this
Chin,
guy?
he's like really familiar.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, he was like in some movie called The Last Dragon back in the day. And I was like, And the moment he said that, I was like, oh my God, now I know. Because every time I would see him, because obviously The Last Dragon was made in 85. I started my school in 2002. And I met these stage combat people, let's say by 2003, 2004. All right. So it's like, it's 20 years after the movie. So people don't look exactly the same like they did back then, right? And the moment I realized it was, I was like, oh, and then I talked to him and then we talked about the film. And he introduced me to one of the other guys, the heavier set guy, was played by an actor named Henry Yuk, who, by the way, was in the movie The Departed. Henry Yuk is also in the Chappelle Show skit where they have the racial draft. He's the guy who comes out for the Asians and then says like the Wu-Tang Clan is now like officially Asian. That's also dope. Henry Yuk. He's like one of the three dudes.
Wow.
And then the third dude is a guy named Freddie Mao. I think he now goes by Frederick Mao.
Okay.
And he lives in Hong Kong.
Nice.
And Michael gave me a black and white of the three of them, a print. Okay. He signed it. Henry signed it. And I just need the signature from Frederick. That's the only one that's missing.
Dude in Hong Kong. We gotta find him
and
next
I
trip.
have on a couple trips to Hong Kong. One trip I got in contact with him, but he wasn't there. He's like he does like theater. He's like a famous theater guy in Hong Kong. And
so
but
he's all over the place.
He's been very difficult to get a hold of. Like I'm just trying so hard because I want to have this photo signed by all three of them.
There we
right?
go.
Well, look, if you're never able to do it, I'll sign it for you.
Perfect.
No problem.
All right.
Freddie Mao.
Freddie Mao, right? And so yeah, so that was like my connection there. Now, of course, being in New York, teaching since 2002, I've had the chance to see a bunch of people from The Last Dragon, which for me, because the movie was such a big deal, it was like I always like nerd out when I see that. I saw Timok a bunch of times. I sat next to Timok once. At an event.
You told me about
and,
that.
That's a story for another day.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was like totally nerding out about that. Unfortunately, Julius Carey, who played Shonef, he passed away.
R.I.P. Julius Carey.
Man, he was so damn good.
Yeah, he's good.
Everything, like when I watch it now as a kid, it was like he's just like the over-the-top villain.
What else has he done since? I feel
don't
like
know.
he's been like a
when
hospital
you go to his
show
IMDb,
or something.
He's done like he did, but most of the other
like
stuff,
an ER show.
He was like way more low key.
Yeah,
but it's just crazy to see him like really commit to that role, and he does such a great job.
Yeah,
and then you have like Ernie Reyes Jr., who plays one of the Bruce Leroy students, and then Glenn Eaton, who plays Johnny Yu, who's the guy who masters
locked
the art
in
of
the closet
fighting without knowing how to fight. Right?
Didn't he get locked in the closet?
He did get locked in the closet. He was
weapon closet?
so great, and Glenn Eaton occasionally comments on KFG videos.
Word.
And every time he comments on one of the videos, usually like Bruce Lee related stuff, there's a big part of me that kind of geeks out, right?
Shout out to Glenn. Thank you for the support.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but when you look at it, everyone is so great everyone is perfect in that movie. All right, just think about it. Timok is perfect as Bruce Leroy. Julius Carey is so
What's
good.
the girl's name who plays like the Cyndi Lauper character?
Faith Prince. Faith Prince. Angela Veracco. Yeah, she's like so perfect
So
as that
good.
with that Queen's accent.
Yes.
You know, like it's perfect, right? Yeah. The thugs are great. You have like early, I suppose you now call them cameos because it was like before they were famous.
Yeah.
You had William H. Macy, who's trying to like, it's like one of his first
William
roles.
H. Macy's looks young as.
And you have Chaz Palminteri playing one of the thugs, right?
My God, I do have to see this film.
Yes, you have to see it, right?
Chaz is a limo driver.
That's
something.
right. And then when you see that first scene, well, it's not the first fight scene because the first fight scene is at Enter the Dragon, all right, where we see Shonuff come in, all right.
They're
right. Watching Enter the Dragon.
Yo, what comes to mind is he picks a fight with boy Bruce Leroy, and then everyone else is like, no, leave him alone. Those two wrestler dudes.
Yes.
One of them has like the crazy midriff.
Yeah, it was the 80s, man. I mean, I think if you had a shirt that went all the way down, they would say you were fruity. All right? Like, this guy's got a normal T-shirt on. What's wrong with him?
Here.
Yeah.
Get him out of here.
Yeah.
He's not
that guy looks a little light in the loafers, while he's got like his cutoff shirt
but the
over
way
here,
he
right?
stands up,
I mean, Bruce Leroy, Shonuff comes in, wants to watch Enter the Dragon. I always wondered as a kid, why did he come in halfway through the movie? He missed like the opening scenes, all right? And then you know, the kid says like, you know, is there anyone better than the Shogun? Like
Yo.
Bruce Leroy. And if you think
Threw him
about it,
under the bus.
if you think about it, the entire plot of the movie where the Shonuff wants to kick Bruce Leroy's ass is pretty much just because that kid said Bruce Leroy could kick his ass. So like that's the pin, the linchpin of the whole film right there. If that kid had kept his mouth shut, Shonuff would have just sat down and wouldn't have noticed anything, right?
Kid. I wonder who plays that kid. We need to find him.
Yeah, we need to find them.
He had a pivotal role in the movie.
And there's Bruce Leroy eating
he's just
popcorn
chilling.
with chopsticks.
Yes.
I mean, that part was so great.
Yes.
And then, you know, and then they have their standoff, and then the guys get pissed off, like, why don't you sit down and shut up? There's a huge melee in the film, right? Everyone starts fighting on stage. It's wild, right? And then while all this chaos is going on, Bruce Leroy pieces out, and Shonuff is like, you gotta fight me someday, Bruce Leroy, right? And like that sets up the whole thing, right?
You know what's cool is in that scene, he's talking to Bruce Leroy.
Yeah.
And he's like, I heard about you.
Yeah.
You know, like I heard you're the guy who catches a bullet in your teeth.
Yeah.
And that sets
if
up.
it ain't the U.S.A. legendary Bruce Leroy.
Yeah. It sets up
skinny
like
little
his
lizards
whole arc.
That give Kung Fu a bad. Think of they the last dragon. That give Kung Fu a bad name, right? I always wanted to hear someone say that line seriously, right? And here's the thing: as a child, I have to admit, all right, I didn't get to go to New York City often because, for people who don't know, New York City of the 1980s was not the New York City of now.
Oh no,
like,
it's different.
We'd go to New York City if we were going to go see like a Broadway show or something like that, or like I wanted to go to the Empire State Building, so they would take me in, right? But it was like you didn't just casually go to New York as an outsider unless you had something to do.
Yeah, I was in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And the only time we went to New York City was to see our cousins, or New Year's Eve. My godmother would bring us to the village.
Really?
As little kids, we'd go walk around the village at like 1, 2 a.m. in the morning. Crazy.
Yes.
8, 9 years old.
Yeah, and the New York of the 80s was wild.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the New York. Like when people
the
think of like
best.
the tough, it was like that was the New York, right?
Yeah.
And so I didn't just like, I couldn't just like tell my parents like, hey, can we go to the city this week? And we had to have something to do, right? So I always wanted to go to New York. As a kid, like New York City was like the place I wanted to be, right? And when I watched The Last Dragon as a child, I have to admit, I thought that the New York City martial arts scene was pretty much as it was depicted in The Last Dragon. I thought like you'd go watch a Bruce Lee movie in the movie theater and they'd be like fights and everyone was like, what? Everyone's like beating up each other, right? And you go to Chinatown and everyone's like trying to fight you and like schools would have people show up. Now, turns out it wasn't that far off from how the New York martial arts scene was in the 80s, but it's very far off from how it was when I started teaching in the early 2000s, right? But in my mind, I thought like, and here's the thing, there are fights like at the movie theaters and like there's guys like Shogun of Harlem challenging martial art guys, right? I was like, whoa, that's crazy. And here's the thing, and I wanted that.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh man, I don't want to go to New York and do more. I was like, I want to go to New York. I want to be like part of this.
I want to be
whatever
that.
This crazy shit is, right? And so that I think is probably one of the reasons why in my mind, even though as I got older, obviously I knew this is not the world you build a business in, but like, I would be remiss if I didn't
It's bad for business.
say that probably a huge part of the ethos, the mythos of this movie is probably why I ended up in New York teaching Kung Fu of all things, right? So it's I think would be understated to say like, oh, this movie just had a mild influence on me, right? So who's your favorite character outside of Bruce Leroy?
My favorite character.
Let's say outside of Bruce Leroy and Shonuff, because Shonuff is so good, and every scene that he's in, he just chews up all the scenery. He's just so great and so over the top. You almost have to put them away, all right? Because we got a lot of side characters, right?
I gotta say, I love the little brother. He had all the balls.
Yeah, and he
All
was
the
the
balls.
exact opposite of Bruce Leroy, right? Yeah.
Right.
Unfortunately, that actor he passed away.
What was his name in the movie?
Richie
Richie.
Green, right?
Richie.
But
Oh,
like what I
man.
mean by everyone was great, like he was so great because he was the exact opposite of his older brother. But the mom and the dad
Right.
They were just perfect in their roles, even though they didn't have many scenes. It's like everyone who's in it just totally knocked it out of the park, right? So we have so then it's like it's a movie with basically two, or we should say three main plot points. Okay.
Mhm.
First plot point is Leroy. He's kind of coming towards the end of his martial arts journey as a student, and he needs to find, quote, the master, who is somewhere in New York. So he's on a quest to find the master and give him the gold belt buckle or whatever, right?
Okay.
That's like the one main
That's
driving
all he
plot,
cares
right?
about.
The second one is this tension between the Shogun of Harlem wanting ultimate supremacy over being the baddest dude in New York, and people saying, well, Bruce Leroy is actually the baddest guy, and Bruce Leroy is not the guy to pick fights.
Right.
Everyone's just saying, yeah, you might be bad, but actually everyone knows Bruce Leroy's kind of badder, right? So then Shonuff wants to get Bruce Leroy, who's kind of reluctant to just fight him for no reason. And then the third subplot point is Eddie Arcadian.
Arcade owner or
is
something
producing these awful frickin' music videos for his girlfriend, and he wants to promote them, and he wants to get them on Laura Charles's show, which is called Seventh Heaven, or I don't know if that's the name of the club or the name of the show.
Yeah, right.
And it's kind of almost like a Soul Train type thing where they play the video and people dance.
Okay.
And so if you can get your music video played on there, then it's gonna be huge. So Eddie Arcadian is kind of like a bit of a scumbag, bit of a wannabe gangster, and music producer is trying to get this awful music video played on there, and they
what
don't
was
want
the
any
name of
part
his bodyguard? Remember the bodyguard?
Rocco, I think.
Rocco.
Yeah.
Who played that guy? I remember seeing
He's
him
the
in.
same guy who was in Dumb and Dumber.
He's in Dumb and Dumber, and he's also in the movie with Michael Jai White. Michael Jai White did a good movie.
Oh, really? I don't know. Are you sure about that? That's a bold statement right there.
No.
Michael Jai White did a good movie.
What was that movie, man? You know what movie I'm talking about.
Mike Starr is the guy's name.
Mike Starr.
Mike
Nice.
Starr.
Yeah, I love that guy. He's
Yeah.
great.
It was like a blaxploitation film that Michael Jai White did.
You're talking about Black Dynamite.
Yeah,
Black Dynamite.
Yeah.
Yes, he's in
you're
Black
right. That is
Dynamite
a good
too.
Michael Jai White. So anyway, so you have those kind of three main plot points, and then of course there's the budding love story between
the
Bruce
little brother.
Leroy and Vanity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the little brother loved Vanity too.
Yeah, but that's just part of that whole kind
That
of
was-
thing, right?
yeah.
Yeah, but he was too young. I mean,
Yeah.
she's not gonna mess around with him. He's a boy.
She ain't want him.
All right.
She ain't want him.
So you have these things going on, and they kind of interweave with each other in kind of interesting ways.
Great.
But it is a bit messy in that kind of 80s way where you only in the 80s could you make a movie with these three kind of ridiculous main driving points and still somehow put it together at the end, right? So anyway, you still didn't answer. So is it Mike Starr? Is it Rocco? Is that your favorite guy outside?
No. I think it's little brother Richie.
Brother Richie, right?
Yeah, because
I'd ask Mikey, but he hasn't seen it.
He hasn't seen it. No.
I get it. I'm inadequate.
It doesn't sound like the first time he said that today. So
That's the theme of his day today.
yeah, so and then also and the other part of his journey is that when Bruce Leroy himself
Mhm.
reaches the final level, he'll know it because his body will glow.
Yes.
All right. So that's the part where we get outside, because every part of the movie could actually be real,
Right.
except that part is a little mystical, and that's where it gets a little into the realm of fantasy, hence making the movie very difficult
What I
to
love
define.
is that's the most famous song bit from
Yes.
the movie too. You've got the glow.
Yes.
Everyone remembered
When you
that
reach
part.
that final
Yeah.
level, yeah, that's right.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes. It's giving me chills.
I know, it's so fantastic,
glow.
especially when you've seen the movie.
I think I have to glow right now.
Yeah.
That's what the chills are.
Yeah, it could be,
Right.
I think that's the great thing, when you're watching the movie with someone for the first time, and you
Oh,
want to see, are they going to figure it out?
Yeah.
All right. Or are they going to be surprised at the end, or what? You know what I mean? It's kind of like showing people Empire Strikes Back for the first time and not spoiling it for them, right?
I've never seen that either. No, I'm kidding. I've seen that tons of times.
Jesus. We almost had to throw him out.
I know.
Sheesh.
Exactly. So yeah, we have these three different stories coming together. We have the love story thing, and then we have
Interwoven.
what also makes the film interesting is there's some Bruce Lee footage in it, right? So you have Enter the Dragon,
Yeah.
and then later when Vanity playing Laura Charles brings him in to show the music video about the glow. It's got all these clips from mostly from Fist of Fury, but a couple other little things from other films in there as well.
Oh yeah,
And,
he's
and
like,
that's always like, the one thing in terms of world building
okay.
that I thought they kind of fucked up in The Last Dragon.
Oh,
Okay. So Bruce
Break that down.
Leroy is learning martial arts.
Mhm.
He comes to the end of the road. His sensei is like, when you reach the final level, you will know it by a sublime glow all over your body. So it's obviously something that's been discussed. But what I want to know is they don't really establish how well this fact is known outside of like Bruce Leroy's school.
Ooh.
Okay? Because here's what's kind of weird. The song is about the glow.
Mhm.
So clearly in the world of The Last Dragon, the glow is some solemn martial arts thing that you'll achieve when you get to the highest level.
Okay.
But it's also known well enough for someone to have made a pop song about it. Right?
Yes.
Especially
feel
before the
it in
finale of the movie. I just thought like, so does everyone kind of just know about it? And then
I get that.
yeah, you know what I mean? So it was a little like, okay, all right. I'm with you there.
I wish
guess.
I knew about this glow
Yes.
before.
By the way, the fight choreography. So let's talk about the martial arts in there. I mean,
Oh,
this
your
is
boy.
the Kung Fu Genius podcast, after all.
Right.
Yeah, Ron Van Cleef,
That's right.
friend of mine, was I think him and one other guy did the choreography, and
Gotta get him
Ron
on
is
here.
also in one of the fight scenes at the end there where they're fighting in the arcade.
You told me about
And
that.
he's got a mask on though, right?
Yeah.
He's using the chain.
Yeah.
He's kind of hitting Bruce Leroy when he's on the
He's
ground,
a
right?
thug.
Yeah, so he also plays one of the bad guys, and yeah, it's good because the American martial art movies. So I'll just take a kind of a divergence here, just to kind of set the stage, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, with the exception of like canon movies, like the ninja movies with Sho Kosugi, which were their own genre because
Oh, man.
the ninja movies weren't just about the martial art movies the way like I should say ninja films are not just about the martial arts.
Mhm.
They're about the whole mystique of the ninja, right? The weapons and disappearing and, now you see me, now you don't. And like there was a whole mystique thing that made it kind of its own subgenre within martial art film. And I don't think anyone did it better than Canon. All right? Especially the first, like the 3 real, ninja movies, right?
Word.
The anthology of ninja movies, right? Enter the Ninja, Revenge of the Ninja,
Holy
and
Grail.
Ninja 3, The Domination.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so like you kind of got to put them aside, but outside of like the ninja film, and then let's say before Van Damme, American martial art movies kind of sucked. And if you look at like some Chuck Norris movies, okay, when you look at the action in some of the Chuck Norris movies,
Okay.
it was okay. Like the Octagon is pretty good. It's got Richard Norton in it. Force of One, which kind of had like kickboxes of it. But for the most part, it's like when you compared it to the Hong Kong films at that time.
Okay.
Like if you compare it to Project A, Police Story, the stuff that was being made in Hong Kong, it's just so slow. And spin kicks and like it's one hit and the guy's down and you don't have like one take where you have lots of lots of movements and stuff like that, right?
What comes to mind? What's that movie, the ninja movie that was made in New York? That we
New York
watched?
Ninja?
New York
New York
Ninja.
Ninja.
Oh my God, that movie was so terrible, but it was good,
Yeah, but that
terrible.
was like one of those like so bad it's good movies,
yeah,
right?
So good and terrible.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
Yeah, it was pretty fucking terrible. Well, I mean,
Good and
to be
terrible.
fair, that movie was never really finished, and it was abandoned. And then they found the footage, and the footage did not include the sound because they shot it without sound. So they had to piece together what the plot of the movie was, and they had to piece together what the dialogue was. And then they released it. I think you can see it on the Paramount app or something like that, right? New York Ninja. It's crazy. I mean, it's like you and your boys one night. You don't watch it with a
Shit show.
date.
It's a shit show. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you
right.
look at like a lot of the American martial art movies at that time, they were like the choreography was really slow. It wasn't like it wasn't really compelling. And then you look at 2 standouts from the mid 80s, and that's The Last Dragon,
Mhm.
which the fight scenes are pretty good. I mean, they're not like it's not Hong Kong level,
Yeah, but as a
it's-
kid, you're just like
yeah, but
loving
I have to say, like, it's still
Yeah.
the fight scenes are good. They're not following a Hong Kong style,
Mhm.
and they're not in a typical American style at that time. It's like solid martial arts choreography. When
Okay.
you see the fight scene where he comes to rescue Laura from the limo drivers who are trying
Mhm.
to kidnap her, there's a tremendous amount of Wing Chun in that fight scene. You see him do Bong Sao and Pak Sao elbow, and it's very Wing Chun-y in there. When you watch it, it's, like,
Wow.
it's really good.
So
and
he
it's
might have
short.
pulled that from Lung Ting.
Potentially, I mean,
anything.
Ron Van Cleef did learn some
Yeah.
Wing Chun from Leung Ting back in the day.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's like the choreography's really decent, and then at the end when they have the big melee where all of Bruce Leroy's students are fighting against all
the
those
end,
guys hired by
yeah.
Eddie Arcadian, you see like it's like kind of very cool martial arts action. Now you have Ernie Reyes Jr. in there
Oh,
when
yeah.
he was real little.
Oh,
with
he was a
his,
stand-
with his
stand-up.
dad.
Yeah.
All right, and that's
okay.
why like one of the bad guys actually played by his dad. And that's like when he grabs him and picks him up. That's a demo that
Didn't
they
he?
used
Yeah.
to do at tournaments
told
all
me
the
about
time.
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was like that was called like the West Coast Karate Demo Team or something like
Okay.
that. And he used to do those demos with his dad. He had some break dancing. He would do the kit. Like
That's probably
like,
how he got
He
in
knocked
that
out his
fight.
dad. His dad is down. Then he does the break dancing. His dad comes up and he kicks him like in the middle of the break dancing, right? And that was a whole thing. And then Ernie Reyes Jr. later went on to do a bunch of movies like the Surf Ninjas. He was one of the Ninja Turtles in the first movie, and then he plays Kino in Ninja Turtles 2. And then he was also
Oh,
in a
cool.
movie with The Rock called The Rundown. And he does really good martial arts in that movie.
I've never seen
And then
the
yeah, you
Rundown.
should go watch The Rundown with Rock. It's pretty
Yeah,
good.
it's actually pretty good. It's got like Christopher Walken and like Sean William Scott in there.
Yes. And Ernie Reyes Jr.
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
martial
doing
arts.
martial arts.
Yeah, it's
I need to see it.
really good. Yeah, it's surprising that Ernie Reyes Jr.'s career didn't get bigger because during the time in the 80s
talented.
and in the 90s,
Mhm.
if you look like good-looking dude and there weren't people who are really, I mean, he was really damn good.
Mhm.
Interesting thing about Ernie Reyes Jr. is that even after he did all these movies, he had a short career in actual Muay Thai kickboxing, which is like that's not an easy thing to get into later in life. And Ernie Reyes Jr. later in life got into Muay Thai kickboxing and had a number of competitive bouts. And from what I understood, he was actually quite successful.
Wow.
And did that like later on, kind of like how Chen Wai Mun, like after he was already established, then decides to go in there and like kickbox against these like Japanese kickboxers and stuff, right?
Wow.
So nothing but respect. And I think that Ernie Reyes Jr. did have some health problems a few years back. I don't know if he's over that or what the deal is, but as a kid, I wanted nothing more but to be like Ernie Reyes Jr. because
All right.
because I was like he was a little bit older than me, but like when I was young, he was like a kid doing martial arts, and like as a kid, you see like I didn't see myself like as one of the adults. I saw myself as him, right?
Oh,
There was
okay.
also a TV show, Disney back in the 80s. They used to have like these like once a week they would have like Disney Presents, like it was on the weekends. I remember it was like Sundays, and they would produce like content, and they had a show called they had a movie they made. It was like a made-for-TV movie called The Last Electric Night. And this is real geek level stuff. Ernie Reyes Jr. is in it. And he stars alongside Key Luke, who was Master Po from the Kung Fu TV series, the blind one, the Snatch the Pebble from My Hand. By the way, that actor, Key Luke, was also the voice for Han in Enter the Dragon. Because Han, played by the late Sekin didn't speak any English.
So he
And
had
so they
to
shot
throw
Han's
Key
scenes
Luke.
without well, they shot everything pretty much without sound. It's Hong Kong style. They dubbed it all later. And Sekin, they had a woman off camera who would say his lines in English. So then she would be like, gentlemen, like off camera because it's without sound. And then Sekin would mouth gentlemen, right? And it's like, you have forge your spirit in the, you forge your bodies in the spirit of your ancestors. And she would say that off camera, and then he would just repeat it as best as he could in English, or in what he could understand, and just say it, right? That's why when you watch Enter the Dragon and you look at Han's mouth when he's mouthing the words, you can tell it's not entirely synced to the voice, but you look at it, it's like, but it looks like he's saying the words in English. And that's because he was just imitating someone off camera.
Wow.
And the person who did his voice was Key Luke, a Chinese American actor who played Master Po in the Kung Fu TV series.
Really cool.
Yeah. So anyway, there was a show produced by Disney, a movie, and it was called The Last Electric Night. And Key Luke is like the master of like, or the
What was that
grandfather.
about?
He's like the grandfather of Ernie Reyes Jr. and he's taking care of him. And it's like he teaches him martial arts, but they also have some kind of powers, like where I don't remember. It's been so long. He puts a helmet on, or he puts an amulet on, or he says something. He suddenly has these like electric powers or something like that, and then he can do like martial arts with electric powers. Which I'm now going like, well, were they just copying The Last Dragon somehow? That would I think about it, right?
Yeah.
And then that show was such a hit, and I remember seeing that and going, wow. That they made a spin-off TV series based on that Disney movie, and it was called Sidekicks, starring Ernie Reyes Jr., and then he was like adopted, I think, by some cop or something like that. And it only lasted for a season, but it was like something, as a kid, I loved it because every episode he would like beat up adults, which is like super unrealistic, but he would
great.
kick the shit out of like grown-up people, right? And as a kid, I just ate that up. So him being in The Last Dragon was such like a huge thing for me because I loved Ernie Reyes Jr. I think he was
Connected
great.
with him, yeah.
Yeah.
Kid.
So
Wow.
yeah, I always thought he was fantastic. So you see in the fight scenes at the end where he's fighting, one of the bad guys is his dad, and they're doing like bits from that choreography they used to do in their demonstrations, like where he picks him up and he kicks the other guys, grabs his foot and makes him do a backflip. And when you know that, you can see it's kind of staged, but you could see that it's like a demo that they've done time and time
You know
again.
what's wild? I believe Prince's bodyguard was in that movie too.
I wouldn't doubt it.
The big burly guy with the mohawk, white mohawk and white beard.
That was
I think
Prince's
that was
bodyguard?
Prince's bodyguard, yeah.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
He grabs Bruce Leroy. That Bruce Leroy like flicks something in his face
Yeah,
or whatever, right?
It's wild.
Yeah, it was really fantastic. And so, watching this movie, it's like again and again, it's one of the movies that I can never get tired of because it's so entertaining. It's so much fun. If anyone in the Kung Fu Genius audience has not seen The Last Dragon, I would highly, highly suggest as soon as this episode is over, you go, as of this recording, it's on Netflix right now if you're in America. But of course, the catalog's changed, so it may not be on Netflix in 2 months or something like that. There are other places where it is. I think at some point it was like it's on Amazon. I think if you pay for YouTube Premium, I think it's on YouTube Premium as well.
There you go.
So if you haven't had a chance to see it, I highly recommend it. Taimak is great. Really wish he had a chance to have done more. But I mean, I've heard some stories about why he couldn't continue making more movies and things like that. It's not really my place to discuss that because I don't even know if any of that stuff is true. Vanity, fantastic. Also,
Vanity is fantastic.
Also, so heartbreaking about what happened to her and everything. Julius Carey, show enough, really amazing. But everyone
Richie-
in it really cranked
Richie
it up.
Green.
Hey everyone, it's the Kung Fu Genius. Fans and practitioners all know that the wooden dummy is the most coveted tool in Wing Chun, and now you can learn all about it in my cleverly titled book, The Wooden Dummy. I wrote this guide with you, the practitioner, in mind. Rather than mystifying any of the concepts or hiding so-called secrets, I've laid it all out in meticulous detail. The book is contextualized for practitioners of any lineage of the art, not just those who come from WT. Over 300 pages in length, The Wooden Dummy breaks down every aspect from the form, of technical, historical, theoretical details, and it makes it the perfect companion for anyone who's learning the wooden dummy techniques. I've even sweetened the deal for you. If you want to get a copy of this book signed by me, just use the coupon code SIGNATURE when you purchase the unsigned copy, and you will get the signed copy at no additional cost. So go to the link below or go to citywingchun.com/shop. Look up the Wooden Dummy book. Don't miss your chance. This is definitely one of the best books I've ever written on the Wooden Dummy, and I hope you'll find it's the best book ever written on the Wooden Dummy. Get yours today. Check it out.
Yeah, so a couple things. So I just pulled up the Wikipedia page, so I want to talk about some interesting factoids about the movie here, right?
Okay.
So they started production in April 16th, 1984. This was the first acting role for Taimak, who was then 19 years old. And he was a black belt, under Ron Van Cleef in Chinese Goju.
Chinese Goju.
Ernie Reyes makes his debut in this movie. Oh, I didn't realize this was his debut because Ernie Reyes is also in Red Sonja, and I always thought
It's probably right after.
I always thought he did Red Sonja before this one, right? Gordy was frequently on the set. Now, interesting. They talked about, Taimak obviously wasn't the first pick for it because he was an unknown. So the initial ideas for Bruce Leroy, yes,
I think I heard this.
yeah, one was Billy Blanks. You remember Billy Blanks? Who would
Wow.
later go on to create Tybo. But I think he was too jacked. Like
Ty-Mac, Tybo.
yeah,
Okay.
but think about it. Like Billy
He-
Blanks
yeah.
wouldn't have been right because Taimak was this perfect blend of like young and naive but skillful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like he's not really fully aware of how badass he is.
Right.
But Billy Blanks is like too assured of himself, right? I don't think it would have been right.
Right.
Wesley Snipes, I think would have been the same
Interesting.
problem. Mario Van Peebles,
It kind of looks like a Ty-Mac in a way.
Lawrence Fishburne, and even Denzel Washington were considered.
No.
Yeah.
No
Vanity,
Denzel.
who had just left the production of Purple Rain, was cast after Gordy signed her to a 4-picture contract. Well, what are those 4 pictures? The only other one I know of is Action Jackson.
Action Jackson.
Oh, and Never Too Young to Die, she did.
I've never seen
Never
that.
Too Young to Die
We need
is
to make-
Vanity and John Stamos.
We need to
And
see that.
Gene Simmons of Kiss is the villain, and he plays like a transvestite villain in Never Too Young to Die.
So he basically plays Gene Simmons from Kiss.
He basically plays Gene Simmons from Kiss.
God
Yeah, so a couple locations of interest. So Bruce Leroy's Kung Fu school was actually the school of a good friend of mine, Sifu Carl Albright, who's kind of like a pillar
Was
of
that in Harlem?
That was in Harlem, yeah.
Okay.
And Sifu Carl Albright is one of these guys, like he's a pillar
He's
of
old school.
Chinese martial arts
Oh,
in
yeah.
New York, right?
Oh,
He
yeah.
was teaching martial arts in the 60s. And he had learned
Wow.
Wing Chun, he had learned all these different styles, but his specialties are really Hung Gar and Northern Praying Mantis.
Cool.
But he's like an encyclopedia of Chinese martial arts, but he's also like an encyclopedia of the New York martial arts scene through the 70s. And like he knew everyone, right? And that was his school, and they used his school as Bruce Leroy's school for the film.
Dope.
And the theater where they had the Enter the Dragon viewing, that was the Victory Theater on 42nd Street, which was an adult movie theater at that time, right? Before they cleaned it up, right?
Of course, the Victory Theater.
Yeah. So
Passed it a couple times with my mom.
Yes,
sure.
absolutely. The movie's gross was $33 million with a production budget of $10 million. So pretty successful. The reviews were very mixed though when it came out at that time, because I think if you weren't a martial arts guy, you probably didn't really know what to make of the movie. It's interesting, while I was doing some research on this, I actually came across was it the late Roger Ebert's review of The Last Dragon?
No.
Yeah, just give me a second.
On
here.
TV?
No,
Yes.
it was
Oh.
from his website. So he had like written, typed up interviews.
Gotcha.
I'll tell you just to kind of give you an idea of like what it's like the movie review and film summary from Roger Ebert, who gave it 2.5 stars out of 4. So he didn't think it was the worst thing in the world, right?
Okay.
So, but it's funny because it is kind of its time. Because remember that Roger Ebert didn't just have that show with Siskel. He was also like a syndicated movie reviewer. So these would be in the newspaper, right?
Okay.
So,
He was on a news channel too. I remember he'll pop up.
yeah. So, but of course, like when you read the review, it's like Roger Ebert talks about like, oh, these are the typical tropes in like karate movies, and I'm thinking like it's not a freaking karate movie, all right? But again, I've been doing Chinese martial arts for most of my life, and the Cuban side of my family down in Miami still asks me about how my karate school is.
How's your
So,
karate score?
Alex, how'd you karate school? Alex is a black belt. Yes,
very
I'm
good
a-
at karate.
Yes. All right. Well, I am a black belt in Taekwondo, but that's not the thing that I teach, right? So, interesting when you read Ebert's review, he's actually like a little put off by the subplot of Eddie Arcadian. And he says something interesting. He says like he feels that every time it goes to like Eddie Arcadian and like the subplot of him trying to get the music video played on Seventh Heaven, that it kind of slows the movie down. And he says something interesting. He says like that every time he's on there, it kind of like every like 8 to 10 minutes, it kind of just slows the movie down, right? And he says that like he really wishes the movie had more Timac and Shonuff. Which like first of all, I don't really have any complaints with how the movie turned out. It's crazy, it's wild, and I think it's kind of perfect the way it is. But if you had like done it differently, I think going more into like the whole kind of a Bruce Leroy Shonuff kind of feud thing, I think would have also been really good. Roger Ebert also thought Vanity was really great.
Okay.
And he goes, there's another engaging actor in the movie, a man named Julius J. Carey III, who describes himself as a shogun of Harlem and presides over a hilarious early scene where he marches into a theater full of Bruce Lee fans. So it's cool to see that even that was appreciated at that time. And so I highly, highly suggest anyone who's into Bruce Lee, silly 80s movies, action movies, or just in general having a good time, definitely watch
It's a feel
Barry
good.
Gordy's The Last Dragon. And that's all I got to say about that. All right, everyone. Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Kung Fu Genius. As always, don't forget to subscribe to the Kung Fu Genius. Hit that bell for notifications. Support us on Patreon or here on YouTube with memberships. All that information is in the description below. And as always, I'll see you guys next time.
Word is I'm a kung fu genius. Technique speaks for me, not lineage. Forget Jet Li, cause I'm the one. Many call me seafood, but to you I'm sea gung. And I produce masters. You surpassed us. Your kung fu stiffer than corpse and caskets. City Wing Chun is the house I built. Violate the gate and your blood gets spilt. Alex, Richter, always the victor.
You ready?
It's the Method Man for sure, Mr. Meth. Moving on
your
your
left.
left. Ha!
All right. Check the audio.
So,
1,
can I get a
2,
soul clap?
3, clap.
Can I get a soul clap?
No.
Come
All right.
on.
So, you ready?
can just have the normal clap.
Recording audio. Yeah. Deal with one clap at a time, sir. All right.
Mikey has the clap.
When you gonna realize?
When you gonna realize?
When you gonna realize? When you gonna realize?
Is that what he says?
That was
That's
the
what.
pun,
That was the
sir.
pun. All right, peeps. On today's episode of the Kung Fu Genius, the genius and I will be discussing Barry Gordy's The Last Dragon. Lots of gems, lots of the barge, lots of to reach that final level, your mind, body, and soul becomes one. Must become one. Lots of to reach that final level, your mind, body, and soul must become one. To reach that upper level,